Nearly every footballer you can name right now has a social media team, a brand deal, and a highlight reel dropping every other week. In modern football, a strong social media presence is considered just as valuable as performance on the pitch. And players are no longer just athletes, they're global brands. And then there are a handful of players who want absolutely nothing to do with any of it. No posts, no headlines off the pitch, no interest in being seen. And here's the thing, those are often the ones who last the longest. So this video is about why. What's actually going on in the head of a footballer who deliberately steps away from all of that, in a sport that's practically begging them to stay in it? Because it's easy to write it off as shyness or being a bit private. But the psychology behind it is far more deliberate than that, and by the end of this, you're going to see it completely differently. We're going to cover 3 layers: how they fuel themselves, how they protect their focus, and the deepest reason of all, which is the one most people completely miss. That last one is the real answer to whether avoiding the spotlight is a weakness or the most underrated edge in the game. Let's start with how these players actually drive themselves, because this is where it gets interesting. Athletes who are intrinsically motivated participate in sport for internal reasons: enjoyment, mastery, the feeling of getting better. And for footballers who avoid the spotlight, that internal engine is basically the whole thing. Their sense of achievement comes from the game itself, not from what surrounds it. Think about what that actually means in practice. When you don't need praise to feel good, criticism can't gut you the way it guts someone whose whole identity is tied to public approval. You're just harder to destabilize. Research across 97 studies confirms that intrinsic motivation, rooted in personal goals, enjoyment, and self-determination, has a more sustained and profound impact on athletic performance, promoting long-term commitment and continuous improvement. That's not a small thing. That's the difference between a career that burns bright for 3 years and one that runs quietly for 15. Athletes who draw on intrinsic motivation are more likely to approach challenges with curiosity and openness rather than fear or avoidance. And that mindset encourages them to persist through difficulties, view setbacks as learning opportunities, and maintain focus under pressure. So when a player like that has a bad game, they don't spiral. They go back to training. The crowd's reaction barely registers because it was never the point. Now, the second layer is about something most people don't think about: attention. And this is where it connects directly to performance. Fame is cognitively expensive. Managing an image, reading comments, feeding the algorithm, absorbing the opinions of millions of strangers, all of that quietly drains mental energy that could be going somewhere else. In a media-driven era, players who value focus over filters stand out. And their social silence isn't a lack of personality. It's a choice to live privately with total dedication to the game. By refusing to spend attention on being seen, they keep it all for the thing that actually made them great in the first place. There's also a temperament piece underneath this. A lot of these players are introverts operating in an extrovert's industry. And introversion in football is genuinely misread all the time. It gets labeled as arrogance, or coldness, or not being a team player. But it's none of those things. It's just how their nervous system is wired. They recharge in private. The constant performance of fame drains them rather than energizes them. So they opt out. And when you understand that, it makes sense why forcing these players into the spotlight often makes them worse, not better. You're not unlocking them, you're draining them. And if you're finding this interesting, drop a comment below with the name of a footballer you think fits this profile perfectly. The answers are always fascinating, and I read every single one. If you want to go deeper on the mental side of football, there's a video right here that connects directly to what we're talking about. Go watch that next. But here's the thing we haven't gotten to yet, and this is the one that actually explains everything. This is the mega loop I opened with. Is avoiding the spotlight a sign of insecurity, or is it the most underrated competitive edge in the game? The answer is control. Fame is a variable you can never fully manage. Opinion turns, narratives shift. The crowd that loves you today can flip overnight for reasons that have nothing to do with how well you played. Extrinsic motivation driven by rewards, recognition, or social pressure tends to produce short-term gains but lacks enduring influence. When your whole sense of self is wrapped up in public validation, you're handing over the controls to something you can't steer. Your craft, your preparation, your mindset, those you can control. And by stepping out of the spotlight, these players quietly hold onto the one thing that actually lasts. Research confirms that athletes who minimize the spotlight effect are better able to regulate pressure. And psychological frameworks emphasize the relevance of skills that reinforce individuals' tendencies toward intrinsic motivation and resistance toward evaluative threats. In other words, the players who don't need the noise are the ones who handle the noise best when it comes. So to go back to where we started, you probably know someone like this. Maybe it's a player you've watched for years who never seems to have an off-pitch story, never seems rattled, never seems to need the moment to be about them. That's not an accident. That's not modesty. That's a deliberate psychological posture, built on intrinsic drive, protected attention, and a deep understanding that the only thing worth controlling is what you can actually control. The quiet ones aren't hiding. They're just playing a completely different game. And more often than not, they're winning it. If this changed how you think about those players, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And seriously, go watch the next video. It takes this whole idea even further.